أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Is my video on, Sister Ahlam?
Yes, screen.
Okay, good. Okay, welcome to the other episode of this Friday talk, and the topic today is Islam and the environment. This is the content, and I will go slow so we don't have to finish everything. We will do what the best we can do for today, and if there's anything remaining, maybe we can do it another time, inshallah. So why this topic? Because most of the time, people are looking for environmental solutions in science, not in religion. So what is the justification for this topic? To start with, environmental activists, they are giving us a lot that we're facing already crisis, and all this climate change, pollution, global warming, natural disasters, all of these are indication of environmental crisis. We're now in the end of November and we still feel like summer is here. I remember the days when November is already chilly. So some of these things, we can see them in a small scale as real. So the situation is worsened by increasing consumption. The world is over-consuming, and there is always a demand of resources, and natural resources, energy. There is a continuous demand. Most of the conflicts that we experience today, underlying those conflicts is about resources. Whether this geopolitics, wars, underneath there's something to do with resources. And therefore, we really require to have thoughtful action. The global environmental discussions, always they reflect, different priorities, different interests by different stakeholders. Usually these discussions are very politicized. And unfortunately, Muslims, we are, our participation or our role is very marginal. We're almost like left out. You almost like see division. The West typically emphasize on technologies and regulatory solutions, and the global South, they're very suspicious about environmental initiatives that come from the West, because they feel is an attempt to enforce their own economic and environmental standards, and they're kind of slowing or stalling the development of the South. A good example, look at how the discussion today between the rise of China and the rise of India and the rise of Russia and other, Brazil, when it comes to these environmental issues. The West have fully developed themselves, and these countries are now developing. And when the West was developing, the issue of environment was not highlighted. It was not in the forefront. But now, the rise of China and the rise of India and the rise of other nations, the issue of environment becomes a big issue. So it's about time now to seek divine guidance, and Islam can provide sort of a religious perspective on how to navigate these environmental crises. So this is why we have this topic, Islam and the environment, because most of the what's going on today when it comes to environmental discussion is led by people with a different worldview. Most of it is a secular worldview, relying more on science than on divine guidance. I want to start with this picture, and this picture represents sustainable development goals that have been put by United Nations for developing countries. Most of the developing countries now, they are looking at this as a roadmap for their development. There are about 17 goals on different issues, to overcome poverty, hunger, issue of climate action, affordable and clean energy. All of these are environmental goals. And many countries, they are taking them seriously, and Oman is one of them. So part of this Vision 2040, the sustainability or sustainable development goals have been taken into consideration all the time. Universities, colleges, they are opening sustainable centers. My own college has recently opened one, and trying to bring awareness to people about the issue of sustainability. And as a teacher also, we've been asked to look into how we can embed some of these ideas into the curriculums. So, there some good intention of or concern or awareness about sustainability. And if you notice in these 17 goals, each one of them is kind of connected to the environment end of the day. When you talk about life below water, life on land, when you talk about clean energy, when you talk about poverty, everything at end of the day is kind of connected to the environment. And the way they're presented here, they appear to be like individual, isolated, but actually, in reality, they are very much interconnected. So this brings us to this important idea that the human activity and the environment are interconnected. Rarely you do something in one area and it becomes isolated. Usually, when you impact one area, positive or negative, it's going to affect so many other things. I borrowed this picture from Professor Salim Al-Hassani when he came to visit us, and he gave a public talk. And this image is a very powerful image because it shows this really interconnectedness of not only the human activities, but it's also that our cultural values and our worldview matters in terms of how we navigate on the issue of environment and sustainability. So if you really want to see practically how this works, let's look at the global impact of Russian war on Ukraine. And I'm open for people who wants to comment on this. We can have discussion, yeah? So Russian, for their security reason, they decided to invade Ukraine in a limited way. But see how this has impacted things globally, because Russia and Ukraine, they are considered as a food basket for Europe and for many African countries as well. Why African countries depend for food on Ukraine, that's another discussion. I think it has got a lot to do with the colonization and post-colonization, but for here, I want to look at only the facts. So when the war in Ukraine broke out, there was a kind of interruption in the food supply and fertilizers as well. Food supply and fertilizer, especially grains. Wheat, maize. Ukraine and Russia, these are world largest producers and among the largest producers. And even Oman was affected because we had a shortage of wheat that came from Ukraine at that time. So now you see the food, there is interruption in food and agriculture, but as a result of that, it's really affected the health and well-being of people. Food prices went up, and therefore, when you talk about business and trade, when you talk about economy and wealth, it impacts. But not only that, Russia is also, it's a good source of energy, oil and gas, especially for Europe, and therefore there was immediately reaction. So when you talk about governance and institution, European, they reacted by sanctioning Russian energy, and as a result, what happened? Their industries were interrupted because now industries they had to get high expensive energy from the US, from the Gulf, and therefore some of these industries they started to fail. It is very obvious in German, for example, because German now is under recession or is going into recession because of many industries they closed down. Some of them they migrated to other countries, and therefore now you have these economies in Europe, but also in the world, because it does affect eventually the whole world. So you see what appeared to the Russian at that time is like an isolated operation, but it has a tremendous impact globally or in different areas. I'm not expert in this, but people who can do this analysis, you can actually see how issue like this can have a much wider impact globally. All right, so that's an introduction into this topic. So what is the Islamic approach to the environment? Now, from Islamic perspective, everything in the natural world, it serves a purpose. And it kind of enhances the ecosystem, everything. Even if we don't know, we may look into little organism, we may look into little, from our perspective, a creation, but it has a purpose because Allah does not create things with no purpose. That's what He says in the Quran. So if you look at this, just a simple example, these elements or these organisms, they either consume raw material and produce something better for life. And a good example is the beetle, dung beetle. They convert waste into fertile soil. So their existence is kind of connected to the ecosystem. They are giving value to the ecosystem. So another example is these, flies and bees that pollinate flowers. So they fulfill a vital function for the ecosystem. Because if they don't do pollination, then we're not going to have, crops, because this process is essential. Therefore, overall, we can say every element in nature plays a crucial role by adding value, to the ecosystem or to the vitality of life in general. But what about humans? When it comes to humans, this is totally different because humans operate differently within the ecosystem. So human, they are relying on the environment, but they are not adding value to it in return. It's kind of amazing to realize that. So humans' interaction with the environment primarily is a consumption relationship. So we consume nature's resources, yet we return little of tangible value aside from we're producing a lot of waste. So, and this raises a question about the sustainability of such interaction. How can it be that, we're just taking, the best what natures can give, and we give back just waste? So how can human add any value to the ecosystem in the physical sense? All right. In fact, human beings' real purpose, unlike these organisms, our purpose, the real purpose, is to worship God. That's what it tells us in the Quran. Our real purpose is to know Him, is to believe in Him and is to worship Him. And therefore, the whole environment, the whatever that is in the environment, Allah has made it subservient to us in order for us to be subservient to Him alone.
وسخر لكم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض جميعا منه إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون.
So there are many these kind of verses that Allah tells us that He has made everything for us. The whole, of the universe, that it has been created. All the, the resources that are in the, in the world is meant for us, so that we can dedicate ourselves just to worship Him alone. So in that case, how can we add value to the ecosystem in a physical way? So as we said, the human consumption of nature's best resources is often results in production of waste and degradation of the environment. And if we let this go unchecked, the waste production, the degradation of the environment, it will threaten our own survival, the human survival, because here we can see the existence of the environment and our existence are kind of intertwined, and therefore this is a justification of protecting the environment. The best way that humans can ensure that our continued existence is to actively protect the environment. And this is how we add value to the environment. We add value by actually protecting it. Now, when you come to the science of environmental protection, you find that there are two areas. One is waste minimization, and the other one is environmental conservation. So when we talk about waste minimization, we're talking about reducing waste or recycling some of the things and reusing. So all these ideas that came out with the clean energy, recycled energy, and all of that, it's an attempt to minimize the waste. And environmental conservation, here it means to conserve resources of our environment. So clean air, arable land, clean water, vegetation, all of these they come under environmental conservation. And we need to conserve, for example, water, even if we can afford it. It doesn't mean if we can afford it, then we need to waste. Because if we do that, then we're going to hurt the environment. So unfortunately, human beings, we became conscious about the environmental protection only after full-scale damage has been done to the planet, especially in this modern Western civilization, because the Muslims, they were very much conscious about the environment before that. Just to give you example, references of environment in the Quran, so the Quran frequently draws attention to the natural world, which we can look at it as the environment. It doesn't specifically mention environment, but talks about the natural world. And it emphasized that the natural world is actually a mirror. It mirrors divine wisdom, mercy, creativity, beauty, power, because everything is a manifestation of Allah's attributes. So the environment and everything in it, all the creation, is a manifestation of Allah's attributes. And therefore, when you look at, just like Allah has given us a book, which has got His word, the Quran, He has given us another book, which is the natural world, which also it has His ayat or His signs. And it is not a coincidence that Allah refers to what is in the Quran as ayat and what is in the natural world also as ayat, because these are like two books that need to be read and understood and appreciated and respected. So the natural environment and all creations are depicted as manifestations of God's attributes, which are meant for humans to observe and to understand. And we see a lot of themes of creation, ecological balance. We also see the humanity's role as a steward on earth, Khalifa. These are quite recurrent, narratives that we see in the Quran, often calling on individuals to contemplate, the environment signs and symbols of Allah's grandeur. So, for example, the Quran speaks about everything in the universe has been created with a sense of harmony and equilibrium and a balance, and we are tasked to preserve that, and we have been warned not to tip that balance.
والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان.
Okay, so Allah has given us this beautiful environment that is in equilibrium, and we should keep it that way. We should not, disturb that balance. And also Allah, it tells us in many verses that the nature is a sign, is a sign for reflection, because they are all pointing to God. So throughout the Quran, you can read this. It prompts humans to recognize the divine artistry and the purpose, and encouraging us to be mindful, and to be great, to have gratitude. Yeah.
إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم قلوبهم ويتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار.
Also, the Quran frequently reminds us that natural resources Allah has put for us as a provision. You know, He provided us with water, with vegetation, with the livestock. These are all gifts and blessings that Allah has given us for sustenance. And therefore, it is implied here a responsibility to use them wisely.
هو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء لكم منه شراب ومنه شجر فيه تسيمون ينبت لكم به الزرع والزيتون والنخيل والأعناب ومن كل الثمرات إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون.
I think Muslims and people of faith in general, we have advantage because the secular mind does not think this way. You know, things have just come. They have no purpose. They just crop up. They have no creator. You know, we just found them. And therefore there's no that kind of sense of you know, responsibility and accountability. And for Muslims, I think we should bring this awareness, because many times we are disconnected, you know, to our Creator, and we need to bring to, you know, this connection back. Also, the Quran places a human as Khalifa or steward or trustee or guardian of the earth. You know, this is underscoring the duty with accountability to maintain and protect the environment. This is something very unique as well in Islam, because even in Christianity, I didn't find any verse that actually you know, give this kind of responsibility to human directly as a steward or as a Khalifa.
وهو الذي جعلكم خلائف الأرض ورفع بعضكم فوق بعض درجات ليبلوكم فيما آتاكم إن ربك سريع العقاب وإنه لغفور رحيم.
In the same verse where we have been delegated responsibility, you know, with the same breath, you know, the verse discuss about accountability. We will be accountable. We will be tested, and we will be accountable. Also, the Quran acknowledges animal kingdom and emphasizes that animals are communities with intrinsic values and rights, you know, underlying that interconnectedness of life. So in Islam, animals, they have rights. And the Muslims are the pioneers about, you know, putting forward the legislations related to animal rights. And we'll talk about this later.
وما من دابة في الأرض ولا طائر يطير بجناحيه إلا أمم أمثالكم أعمالكم ما فرطنا في الكتاب من شيء ثم إلى ربهم يحشرون.
It's amazing that the Quran is the content of the Quran is very forward looking, because maybe at the time of when it was revealed, uh, environment was not an issue at that time, but we're faced now with this, 1400 years later, with all these development that are taking place globally, increase in population, demands for resources, demands for materials, and all of that. The Quran, it gives us guidance, when we read these verses, we can relate to what's going on today, very much so. Now, the Quran condemns the corruption and abuse of natural resources, and it actually warns against action that cause harm to the earth and disrupt the balance that's set by God.
ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون.
Also, the Quran emphasizes or highlights the importance of water as a vital resource and source of life. It describes it as a life-giving resource, and it is a divine gift that nourishes both humans as well as other creatures, the plants, the animals. And the Quran encourages its careful use and emphasizes its role in sustaining life.
أولم ير الذين كفروا أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما وجعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي أفلا يؤمنون.
The Quran does not leave anything out. Frequently, it mentions diversity and abundance of plant life, emphasizing its role in nourishing life, and it highlights its beauty as a reflection of the divine creativity.
فأنشأنا لكم به جنات من نخيل وأعناب لكم فيها فواكه كثيرة ومنها تأكلون.
Also, the Quran speaks about mountains and rivers, and it depicts them as stabilizers for the earth, underscoring this Quranic view of nature as intricately designed with a clear purpose. Unlike the secular mind that, they think everything they have no purpose, it's just accident.
ألم نجعل الأرض مهادا والجبال أوتادا
وخلقناكم أزواجا.
Also, the Quran talks about the forests, the pastures, livestock for sustenance.
هو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء لكم منه شراب ومنه شجر فيه تسيمون تنبت لكم به الزرع والزيتون والنخيل والأعناب ومن كل الثمرات إن في ذلك لآية لقوم يتفكرون.
Also interesting that, and this is unique in the Quran compared to other scriptures. You know, there are 6 surahs or chapters of the Quran that are named after animals. You know, really connecting us back to the nature. So Surah Al-Baqarah, Wal-An'am, Wal-Nahl, Wal-Naml, Wal-Ankabut, Wal-Fil, you know, all of these surahs, you know, so when you read the Quran, I think it's not difficult to connect it to the environment and to nature. Now, so it's important for us to reflect, you know, on the creation, what we see in the environment, in the natural world. And the perception matters because how we perceive things. So if you perceive, you know, everything, it came with no purpose, everything came by chance. Human being is here with no purpose. You know, the environment around you has no particular purpose, and you just make best use of it. It's different when you actually perceive as a, you know, as a something that reflect or manifestation of God's attributes. It's different, and they're here, and they, you know, they have meaning. So perception is very important. Now I want to use one example, and I have just selected a rose as an example. I could have used something else, but how we look at creation, and we reflect on the divine attributes from that creation. And a rose is interesting because it has this intricate beauty, it has a delicate smell, fragrance, and you know, almost everybody, you know, I've never come across someone who doesn't love flowers. So everybody loves flowers, and therefore it's much easier to, you know, to kind of see these attributes. So when you start by just looking at the flower itself, okay, the very existence of a rose, you know, from seed to blooming flower, is actually, you know, an evidence to God's creative power as a Khaliq. You know, so we read about Asma'ul Husna wa Sifatu, and Al-Khaliq, we repeat this Al-Khaliq, but where do you see it? All right, so you see it in everything around you, and you can see it in yourself. But I'm just giving you an example of the rose. So the existence of this rose, really, it reflects the attributes of God as Khaliq. And so the complexity of its structure, the process of its growth, even its ability to reproduce, you know, and they are all reflection of God's mastery in creation as Al-Khaliq. But also, these flowers, they come in different shape and form and size, and, you know, and colors, and therefore the form and the symmetry of these rose petals, you know, their vibrant colors and their overall beauty appeal really demonstrate God's attribute as Musawwir, the shaper, al-Musawwir, because he designs everything with beauty and with precision. So when you pick a rose and when you look at rose, don't just just think about it as just a flower, and you could reflect on God's attributes with that flower. The rose has a very pleasant fragrance, and its beauty brings joy and comfort to those who behold it. You can find somebody down, maybe sick. You take flowers to when you visit hospitals. You give a flower to somebody who is depressed, and suddenly you see change of mood and all of that. This is a reflection that Allah is merciful, He's Rahman, and God's mercy, and He has created things that provide sensory and emotional pleasure to creatures. All right. Also, the ecological role of the rose, in the environment. You have, it attracting all these pollinators, these insects, and the flies, who contribute to the ecosystem balance. And this showcases God's wisdom, right? Allahu Hakim, in creating each being with a purpose and function, and and achieving it, controlling it and achieving it. How He inspired the bees, to go from flowers to flowers, and their contribution to the ecosystem. So when you look at also the delicate nature of the rose, all right, its gentle petals, its intricate details of its structure, it really reflects God's delicacy, huwa latif, and attention that He gives even to the smallest aspects of creation. Also, everybody understand that roses are beautiful, and this is what you hear people responding when you give a flower like rose. Oh, beautiful, it's beautiful. The beauty appeal of the rose, it has inspired poets, it's inspired artists, throughout history, lovers throughout history, is a manifestation of God's divine attribute of beauty. Because the rose is not beautiful by itself. Where will it get its beauty? The beauty is a reflection or manifestation of divine attribute of beauty, Lana Allah Jamil. So it reminds believer that beauty is an intrinsic part of God's creation. So as we notice now, we reflected, this is what is tadabbur or tafakkur on rose, which is a gift that, to human being, God's gift to human beings. And we can, at least we have taken, account of 6 beautiful names or divine attributes of God we have identified in this flower. I think we could do even more. I think if we pay more attention to other things, we can go on. Maybe 12, 15, 20 attributes can be reflected just on the rose. All right. So why reflecting? So Islamic teachings on Allah's creation and sustenance of the universe, it offers sort of a good understanding of the natural world, whether we're talking about animals or plants or the environment itself. And therefore, the reflection, it promotes an ethical approach to the environment and environmental stewardship. Because if you don't have this, if you don't have this reflection, how do you connect? And therefore, reflection, it promotes that ethical approach. Also, recognizing that nature reflects God's divine attributes promotes a deep respect and reverence for the environment. Because, at least if you don't respect, the creation itself, you should respect the one who created it. All right. So by respecting the one who created it, automatically you will respect, the environment. Yeah. So it does give you respect and admiration for the nature, but also it reinforces your moral responsibility, to as a trustee, as a Khalifa, to sort of encourage ethical behavior toward the environment. So here it will emphasize, care and conservation and sustainable practices of the environment. Okay, so this is perception. The way you perceive things matters. If you reflect on this God's gift of an apple, many of us, we go to the supermarket, we buy apples, and you just, crunch it, and you don't even think about it. But look, try to reflect on the apple, because an apple results from the coordinated efforts and interplay of the universe's natural elements and processes. The apple tree life cycle, it begins with the germination of apple seed, but it will not have happened also, the soil, the minerals, the air, the water, the carbon dioxide, the sunlight, all of these create the necessary conditions and continuous existence and growth of the apple tree. And then you have the photosynthesis that fuels the fruit production, because you could not have the apple without photosynthesis. But photosynthesis, where does it come from? From the sun, of course. But the sun, does it exist by itself? The sun is part of the solar system. And the solar system is part of the Milky Way. The Milky Way is part of even bigger, So when you think about it, it is the unified effort of the whole universe throughout the year. It has to work to give us a gift of an apple. And of course, we should not think of these things, they just program and they come by themselves. Allah intervenes every step. Every step, Allah intervenes. All right, so that's, I think, gave you a sort of understanding of reflection. So I'm going to touch now about the Islamic framework of environmental ethics. So we have a framework. Islam has a framework, all right, for dealing with the environment. And the Islamic principle of environmental ethic, it reflects the integration of faith and the stewardship. Your faith and also your stewardship, your job as a Khalifa of the natural world, all right, as commanded in the Quran. And this principle not only embody an ethical framework, but also guide the practical aspects of environmental conservation within Islamic tradition. And each principle, it carries a significant weight, in nurturing this ethical relationship between humans and environment. So the principle, there are 6, Tawheed and Ayat, Khalifa, Mizan, Amana, and Muhasabah. So let's try to elaborate each one quickly. So Tawheed, we all know what is Tawheed. Means to recognize the singularity and the sovereignty of God in the creation. And this principle, it underscores that all form of life, and the natural resources, all creation, they are part of a singular divine manifestation and should be treated with respect and humility. And we should acknowledge their role within God's vast creation, right? This is a very different view or world view compared to the secular worldview. So Tawheed also means God is the only one who deserves to be worshipped. But guess what? The Quran says that everything in the heavens and the earth praises God, including the environment and everything in the environment, the plants, the animals, everything.
تسبح له السماوات السبع والأرض ومن فيهن وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم إنه كان حليما غفورا.
If you don't know how they praise God, it does not mean they don't, you know. And you are not the only one who praise God. If you think you are praying and your prayers means a lot, you know, everything else, pray to God.
ألم تر أن الله يسجد له من في السماوات ومن في الأرض والشمس والقمر والنجوم والجبال والشجر والدواب وكثير من الناس وكثير حق عليه العذاب ومن يهن الله فما له من مكرم إن الله يفعل ما يشاء.
I think that's why early Muslims understood and respected the environment more, because they knew if you cut a tree for no reason, you are denying a creation is potential to praise God, to pray to God. Same thing, you don't kill animal unless in the name of God for your sustenance. You don't just kill things, yeah? So that's Tawheed. And the ayah, every element in the environment is considered a sign of God's wisdom, God's power, God's beauty. So the natural world, as I said, is viewed as a divine book that unfolding the God's message, and thus protecting the environment becomes an act of reverence and a way to seek spiritual enlightenment. I have a short video, but I think I want to save time, so I will skip that. You know, so everything in this universe is a God sign. Everything is pointing to Him. Everything you can look at the natural world like a book with messages that are meant for us to read, you know, and thus protecting the environment becomes really an act, you know, of a spiritual enlightenment. Yeah, that's a big one. So I'm going to skip that one, the video, and or maybe we can watch the video and we can stop that after the video and we can continue this another time. So let's watch the video.
Why are we experiencing such perpetual detachment from the Creator's Spirit within us? Simply because we've constrained our physical senses, suspended our minds, and blinded our perceptions. We've isolated ourselves from everything around us, screaming the Divine One's name and exalting Him with praise in every passing moment. All the elements of this miraculous, tangible world, which has been carefully designed down to its final detail, for the purpose of being our permanent reminder of that which we constantly forget and refuse to remember. world, displaying the most remarkable illustrations of graphical geometry, governed by impeccable laws that are holding together countless layers of creation composed of infinite details, flawlessly combined to forge a living, breathing manifestation of mastery in the most glorious of forms, just waiting to be noticed, contemplated by the one creature for whom it was all created, man. But most of it goes unnoticed, unappreciated, because we go through life searching for answers in all the wrong places. While if we simply awakened our body's senses through contemplation, opened our minds to reflection, and subjected our perceptions to faith, we would be completely overwhelmed by all the signs that Allah has generously granted us. For it is He who created everything that's on and within the earth for us. And on the earth are signs for those with unwavering faith. So it is through these signs that we may truly begin knowing our Maker. We all see tree leaves almost every day. However, by observing them more closely, we'll notice that the veins of each one form some of the most intricate patterns. Complete designs that may have never been so precise without careful planning and meticulous attention to detail. With some reflection, we can come to the conclusion that the creation stage may always be preceded by a designing phase. Just like in those tiny miracles called snowflakes, made up of water molecules that stick to one another forming hexagons. When each one grows, it always has a distinctive shape that is never replicated. Their designs are basically infinite. Reflect on this, and you'll discover that God never copies any design He creates. It has literally never happened before with anything in nature. Because with unlimited creativity, replicating designs would be pointless. No single thing within the entire realm of existence is identical to one that has preceded it, or any which will ever follow, and grains of sand are a great evidence of this. You never find one identical to the next in size, color, or design, and the features of each one make it a complex, unique work of art. There are hundreds of billions of sand grains on the earth alone, and hundreds of billions of planets and moons in the cosmos, with hundreds of billions of sand grains on every one of them. And on each planet and moon, every grain is different from the next. The work of Allah who has perfected everything. Now apply that perspective on all things that exist in our world. Every line and shape merging to form every single animal pattern. Every stroke of color in each design of an eye. Everything is unique, with all its elements accounted for and recorded, documented in its own register. Nothing is random, uncalculated, or out of control, including one of God's most incredible, complicated works yet. Mankind. All possessing the same physical features, but none is an exact copy of another, and everyone's in a constant state of transformation. Identical twins are never truly identical either. There are always subtle differences which make each one special. Even within the individual body, there is an absence of replication. Each one of your fingerprints is a different elaborate pattern, unrepeated in any other one of your fingers or anyone else's. Your two irises are not exact replicas, and their designs are only yours. The way your facial skin wrinkles when you smile, your body language when you talk, the tone of your voice, how you walk, the way in which you perceive the world, how you feel about life. Everything about you makes you an unmatched masterpiece. But apart from all of this, you know what truly makes you stand out in this world? It's the fact that you're not just any masterpiece. You're the only masterpiece in the universe that contemplates other masterpieces. The only work of art that attempts to replicate other works of art and even create novel ones. You're the only creature for whom this entire world is created. So never let it pass you by unnoticed. Value everything that comes your way. And most importantly, extract yourself from city life and go into nature as often as you can. And remember that a connection with the Creator is always started with a decision and is best maintained through constant reflection.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of talk. I've not finished, but we can, time is up. We can continue another time, inshallah. Sister Ahlam, back to you.
Anyone has any comment or question? Want to share anything? Yeah. After that video, all we can say is Subhanallah wa bihamdik. Subhanallah al-Azim, Subhanallah. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's true. But what is also amazing that Muslims, we should lead the world when it comes to environment, because there's so much our religion speak about environment.
Yeah.
But we are left out, and we don't have yes. Oh, Dr. Ahmed Matani, maybe you can speak up a little bit.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Good to see you.
Jazakallah khair for the very interesting talk, and I learned so much from listening to you. We always have this conversation, Sheikh Hafidh, regarding how we are so fascinated by the West in interpreting and explaining things to the world. And we tend to leave out a lot of things that are actually mentioned in our holy book, emphasized by the Prophet Muhammad. And what makes it even frustrating is that the new generation are left out without proper education about the wealth that they can get from our holy book, from the teaching of the Prophet. And remember once we talked about how the views that these young people tend to have about the religion of Islam nowadays. And when you think about it, when you reflect, because you talked about reflection today, is that parents tend to play a role in this kind of ignorance, and because they tend to push for this agenda that they need to be westernized, they need to be modern, okay, using all these beautiful terms to push for this agenda that has been propagated by the Western media, the ways that been used to sort of brainwash this generation. And I think we have a lot of work to do when it comes to educating the new generation, as parents, as educators, as Muslims in general, okay, to make sure that this message has to be well spread wide and given um, to everybody around us. Okay, we should not shy away from sharing information like this with our young brothers and sisters, our kids, people around us, students, name it. And thank you so much for
I agree.
reminding us with this effort.
Yeah, I agree. And we start educating ourselves, grown up, and then we can pass it to children. It's true.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
Thank you very much
Thank
for participating.
you.
Anyone else? Okay, I think we can conclude with a dua.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I forgot. اللهم اجعل اجتماعنا هذا اجتماعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل منا ولا معنا آثما ولا محروما وصلى اللهم وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. اللهم إني أسألك بأن لك الحمد لا إله إلا أنت المنان بديع السماوات والأرض يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا حي يا قيوم. اللهم انصر اخواننا المجاهدين في غزه، اللهم انصر اخواننا المستضعفين في غزه، في السودان، في سوريا، في لبنان، في اليمن وفي كل مكان. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله صلاه تشغل بها الظالمين بالظالمين وتهلك الكافرين بالكافرين وتخرج المسلمين من بينهم سالمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. See you all next إن شاء الله.